Off we go.
Oh, there's your star, Simon. Okay. Okay, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Committee of Adjustments meeting for August 11th, 2026. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Only with the mover and the seconder, please. Moved by Donna, seconded by Dan. That this meeting be open at 6 p.m. All in favor? It's carried. And moving to the adoption of the agenda, I'll take a mover and a seconder. Moved by Nay, seconded by Steve. That the agenda presented to the Committee of Adjustments dated August 11th, 2026 be adopted as prepared. All in favor? Okay. Sorry, I should have said we are actually going to switch the items C and D to the top, and we're going to do A and B after, just so, because the guests here, so and be respectful of their time for they don't want to spend the evening with us. Adoption of the previous minutes. I will take a mover and a seconder. Moved by Donna. You guys from there. Seconded by Cam. That the minutes of the Committee of Adjustments meeting of June 9th, 2026 be adopted as circulated. Questions or comments on those? All in favor? Okay. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, we can move into the applications. So we will deal with application C on the agenda, minor variance application reference A3 2026 for 1975387 Ontario Inc. property off Mark Street and James Street in Bonfield. Perhaps I'll turn it over to planning administrator to give us a bit of a briefing.
Absolutely. Welcome everybody. So this minor variance application applies to lands legally described as part of blocks A3 and C, and all of blocks B and D, registered plan M4, and all of blocks E and F, and part of lane registered plan M-18, Township of Bonfield, District of Nipissing. There's a series of pins here, otherwise known as land and property surrounded by Mark Street, James Street, and Share Street in Bonfield. So this minor variance application is submitted in conjunction with application reference B7-2026, which is a consent application which sought approval for the creation of 2 lots plus the retained land, with the proposed severed lots intended to follow the original historic block pattern for the hamlet of Bonfield. We'll be covering application B7-2026 next, so I won't go into too detail on the policy on this application. That'll be covered in the next one. But the subject lands comprise an irregular shaped collection of abutting parcels. The parcels are currently in the same ownership and overlook Lake Nosbonsing. And these can generally be described as the proposed retained lands. So these are currently vacant. People in the township may know it as kind of a rocky kind of escarpment, if you like, going up slope from the waterfront on Mark Street. And it did previously accommodate a tavern, but that was previously demolished. So it includes a mix of that exposed bedrock, scrub vegetation, and it declines in elevation, as I say, to Mark Street. Proposed severed lot 1 is immediately to the north of that. So it comprises an existing dwelling, a garage, and a shed. And at the moment, or subject to this proposal, would have a combined lot coverage of 16.7%. So that would fall within the 20% that's permitted for the R1 zone. Then thirdly, we have the proposed severed lot 2, which is also subject to the C2 commercial highway and service designation. That is accessible off James Street to the south of the land holding. At this point, it's not quite known whether that was historically used directly in association with the tavern, or has always remained kind of a vacant parcel in its own right, but we'll come more into that. So from an access perspective, proposed severed lot 1, comprising the existing residence, would continue to be severed off Mark Street, which abuts the property. And the existing dwelling structures would then be sold under separate ownership. Precise driveway entrances, in addition to parking, interior layouts, site servicing, landscaping, stormwater management, and other matters will be discussed at a later date. This is purely just to kind of divide up the land into parcels that the township feels would be acceptable to bring forward further development. So a review of the township's official plan policies. We won't go into full detail, but it is designated as a community core focus area within the adopted official plan. And from a zoning perspective, it has, as I say, mixed zoning, which includes the residential first density R1 zone that applies to the proposed severed lot, and the commercial highway and service zone, which applies to what would be the retained lands. So say the applicant had sought 2 severances in relation to both the dwelling and also a smaller commercial lot to be created. In evaluating the proposal, township staff have conducted a series of visits to analyse the parcels and their characteristics, in addition to the surrounding context. And representatives of the Conservation Authority, as the planning authority on such matters regarding like the design, the specification of septic systems, they've conducted their own site visit, and that's been factored into this recommendation tonight. So proposed severed lot 1, the response made by the Conservation Authority indicated there was some clarification at first about whether there was a dug well or a drilled well, but the applicant confirmed there is a drilled well, which was a positive piece of information that was provided. So on that basis, the Conservation Authority would accept the severance with a condition applied that if or when a replacement septic system came to be on that lot, that either the garage and shed that's present would need to be demolished to accommodate that, or even speaking with the applicant's agent, there's potential that the whole septic bed itself would be dug out and just replaced in situation. So the condition that's proposed allows for both those circumstances, depending on the future property owners' needs, desires. They could reconfigure the lots they wish. In regard to proposed severed lot 2, the Conservation Authority commented that it doesn't appear to be of sufficient size to accommodate a sewage system. So although we accept that this was historically part of that original block plan for the hamlet, going over many decades now, many changes in legislation and regulation regarding minimum lot sizes and setbacks and all these requirements, the science tells us that a lot of that size unfortunately cannot, at this point, maybe it will change in the future, but at this point it cannot accommodate a septic system, so it could not be considered a separate parcel. Therefore, the retained lands, which is the main piece in the middle, what the township's proposed is that severed lot 2 be assumed as part of that wider retained lands. And it makes sense because according to the existing zoning, that's how it's divided up anyway. So it would reflect what's currently there in terms of the blocks as they're zoned, and wouldn't really materially change anything. The dwelling would remain in situ, would have its own property, its curtilage, and could be sold off potentially to support this new development to come forward.
Oh, sorry, Simon, you've got the 3 parcels here, so the proposed severed lot 2 then just remains part of the blue section.
That's right, yeah.
Okay,
Retain.
yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Thanks for clarifying. So yeah, when doing the minor variance applications like this, there's 4 tests that we need to consider about whether it's in keeping with the purpose of the intent of the official plan. So there's detailed responses in the report, I won't go to them, but in essence, what we're saying is, regards to severed lot 1, subject to that condition, yes, it can be. Severed lot 2, no, but the retained can be again, because it would have a larger area within which to accommodate new development. So it can meet that test. Same would apply for the zoning bylaw. Severed lot 1 could be accepted subject to a condition. Severed lot 2 should be merged with the retained. The 3rd test is about whether it's minor in nature. Overall, we're just looking at recognizing what already exists in terms of the dwelling. So again, that can be considered minor in nature and meets that test. And where it's appropriate and desirable development for the area is the 4th test. So really, again, subject to that condition, but also there's a recognition. I mean, the applicant and the agent is here, and the council's here, our committee's here. I think everybody's supportive and is appreciative and wants to see development come forward on these properties. So we look forward to the next stage and what we can actually work together to kind of how we could develop this if it's approved tonight. So in consideration of the above, there's a chart. It indicates basically the difference. So we'd be for the R1 zone, reducing the lot frontage from 60 meters to 37.4. The lot area would reduce from 1 hectare to 0.28 acres. But as I say, we can't do much about that. It's already established. And also because there is an existing dwelling which has a 0 meters setback from Mark Street, the way we've written this report just seeks to recognize that it is legal non-compliant, but we just want to have that tied up as well. In terms of the commercial highway and service zone, which will apply to the retained lands, we'll be seeking a variance of 26.9 meters compared to the usual 60 meters, and a total area, this is both the retained and the severed lot 2 combined, of 0.78 acres, and that compares to the 1 hectare as standard. The application was circulated to the neighbours, agencies, etc. on the 24th of July. No official comments were received from neighbours. No other township staff provided comments at this time. The Algonquins of Ontario and the Bonfield Snowmobile Club did not raise any concerns. And a full copy of the Conservation Authority comments is provided as attachment 1 to the report. So just to summarise, the minor variance was submitted in conjunction with application B7/2026, which we'll go over next. It sought approval for the creation of 2 lots plus the retained lands. Further consultation with the applicant's agent, Conservation Authority. The recommendation of staff is that it should be the 1 severance be permitted in regards to proposed severed lot 1 to allow the dwelling, accessory dwelling structures to be a separate lot. And on that basis, their condition be applied requiring sufficient space to accommodate an on-site sewage system. And also that in any existing wells on both the proposed and severed lots would be required to be tested and registered with the MOE, just to kind of make sure that they're up to standard and support this new development moving forward. And with that, I'll pass it back to the chair for the discussion and the motion.
Thank you. Open up to the committee for any questions or comments.
So they're not using the pipe and the holding tank across the road.
For the septic, because that's where the septic used to go, to a holding tank across the road.
It's been since been filled in. Isn't it go across? the-
Yeah, no way.
Because I think that's older than I am.
Why not?
So. Okay, any other questions or comments? Oh, yeah.
So, it's just that, I'm Paul Goodrich, for those of you that don't know me.
No, okay.
Yeah, where did I come from? This is Jeff and Joanne Hamilton. I know we read out a numbered company, but this is the names and faces of that numbered company. They're both with me here this evening. I just picked up on one thing though that Simon had said, and just let everyone know this is exactly what the proposal is now before you. We've taken out that severed lot 2, so it's just a severed and retained. But I believe your bylaw is written that the smaller of the 2 frontages constitutes the front of the property. So instead of the minor variance for the retained land being 26.9, maybe we should reference it to 22 meters for the James Street, because
Yep.
that's the shorter of the 2.
Yeah, we could do that.
So that's
We'll
the one, yeah. See,
Oh, I would agree to that recommendation.
Okay, it's done, let's go.
Okay. Or-
If everybody's happy with that, does everybody understand what Paul's proposed there?
Yeah. Okay, so no other questions or comments at this point?
Very big details, and I think we're trying to protect everyone, right? So that later on, there, all the paperwork is in place, and so we appreciate that.
Still the new concept.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you. Do you have any comments, your worship? Do you have any comments, your worship? No.
No.
No. So thank you. Appreciate the fact that you're here this evening and the investments and what you're doing to try and set up this location and this property for future investment. So it's very exciting and we appreciate that. Obviously, if the Conservation Authority, if you can ever get them on side, or rules change or technology changes and they allow it, then I don't know that you'd see a lot of pushback from as a committee, so good luck with that if that could ever happen. So with that, I'm happy to read the motion. Bear with me, Simon hates me. Okay, so I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Mary, seconded by Cam. That the Committee of Adjustment recommends to council that proposed minor variance application reference A3 2026 1975387 Ontario Inc. be partially approved, subject to the following proposed amendments and conditions. One, that a reduced lot frontage of, is it to change this now? Of
Yes.
frontage of, yeah,
need to change it.
of, what was the number?
Let's just call it 22 even, it's
Yeah.
22053, but gives us a little bit of leeway in case
Yeah.
the survey turns
Okay.
a little different. You never know.
Yeah, okay, so the reduced lot frontage of 22 meters, a reduced front yard setback of 0 meters from 6 meters, and a reduced lot, is that still accurate, given the?
Sorry,
No, that's okay,
I
we
think
gotta get
for
this
the,
right.
for the severed land,
Yeah,
the reduced frontage would go to 37 meters.
Yeah,
Because that's what the
Okay.
newly created residential lot
So
would
it's-
have.
changes to condition 2.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, 0.2,
And then it's the retain that would go to 22 meters.
okay, so reduced lot, but the reduced lot. That? 30 is the top one?
So
Proposed
the
conditions are-
condition 1 as is, and condition
Okay.
2 just
So-
replace the first one, 26.97.
Which 22? Okay, thank you, sorry, but the reduced lot frontage of 37 meters from 60 meters, a reduced front yard setback of 0 meters from 6 meters, and a reduced lot size of 0.1 hectare be permitted in relation to proposed severed lot 1 with the total area of all buildings and structures not to exceed the maximum 20% lot coverage permitted within the residential first density R1 zone. 2, that the reduced lot frontage of 22 meters from 60 meters be recognized in relation to the proposed retained lands comprising of commercial highway and service C2 zone, and the total area of all buildings and structures not to exceed the maximum 20% lot coverage permitted within the C2 zone. 3, that the retained lands subject to the C2 zone shall have a combined lot size of 0.318 hectares. 4, that the existing and future on-site sewage system and well associated with the dwelling located at 208 Mark Street be contained wholly within the property's boundaries. And 5, that the existing garbage and garage.
Wrong property.
Yeah. The existing garage and shed on proposed severed lot 1 be demolished to accommodate any future proposed replacement on-site sewage system. Unless it can be demonstrated that there is sufficient alternate space on the lot to accommodate a replacement system that addresses all identified health and safety requirements. 6, that the pre-application consultation take place with the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority pertaining to any future on-site sewage systems sufficient to accommodate the proposed use of the retained lands. 7, that any existing or proposed well on the retained lands be tested and registered with the MOE. And 8, the building permits for any proposed buildings and structures on all proposed lots be obtained from the chief building official representing the township of Bonfield. D, consent application reference. Oh, wait, sorry.
That should be
I
it.
need-
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I need to separate. All in, any other further questions,
Yeah.
comments?
Yeah, so it's not severed lot 1, it's just a severed lot. Right, it's just a whole one lot. For number 5?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah, we can. Severed lot be demolished, yeah, so the existing
Okay.
garage.
So you don't identify it as one, it's just
Yeah,
the
we just
lot.
lot.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can we read it again?
Cool. You're hilarious.
Can you repeat 2, 3, and 4?
Yeah. All in favor? That is good. Um. So.
Yeah. Station B.
Yeah, okay, so, moving on to. Application B 7/2026, we're again for 19753. 8790 Inc., property off Mark Street and James Street, Bonneville.
Okay. So as mentioned, this consent application relates to the minor variance application that was just approved. I won't read the full legal description out again, because I feel like it's familiar. Also, in terms of the subject land and land use, I believe I've described the location, the parcels now, everybody's familiar with that, so no need to go over that unless anybody's unsure. So I'm going to skip to the policy section. So the planning policy context. First of all, we have the provincial planning statement, so PPS 2024, which came into effect on October the 20th, 2024, and has a series of updated policies designed to shape land use and development decisions across the province. Includes in reference to housing, policy 2.1 part 4 applies to planning for people and homes. States its need to provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing options and densities, etc. So this proposal to sever lot 1 would not in itself increase Bonnefield's total residential supply, but it would contribute to increased density in this location and so free up the retained lands for new development. So that in a way is pro-development. Policy 2.2 on housing refers really kind of like appropriate locations and densities. It's within the hamlet, it's relatively accessible, people can access services, so it meets that test. In terms of policy 2.8.1 applies to supporting a modern economy. States the proposed the proposed retained lands to be inclusive of the proposed severed lot 2 does have the potential to meet these policy objectives. For technical reasons, as will be explained further, lot 2 cannot support a commercial employment use in isolation. Well, that's what we're being advised at this time, unless any prospective solutions can come forward. The applicant has so far failed to provide such documentation. That's why that recommendation was produced. So the severance would reduce the size of the proposed retained lands if we were to allow that severed lot 2 to take place. And that could potentially limit really the range of commercial employment opportunities that could be accommodated, because the lots in the hamlet are relatively small and you do need sufficient space in which to accommodate all forms of on-site servicing. So that was one of the real tests, if you like, for us of whether to accept that second severance. Energy conservation, air quality and climate change. So pre-application consultations with the applicant revealed potential uses that could come forward. So there is an understanding that we need to address some of the hydrology, stormwater management matters through reports. And find a way really to kind of ensure that any development of the lands doesn't have an adverse impact either on municipal infrastructure or adjoining properties. So that's what that would kind of be looking at. In terms of sewage, water and stormwater, policy 3.6 applies to those. The NBMCA has confirmed there isn't sufficient room on proposed severed lot 2, but subject to that condition about either the removal of the garage and shed or digging up the whole existing bed and replacing it, that severed lot 1 can be accepted. So the official plan review, township, sorry, not a review, but the official plan, the township of Bonnfield, various policies. I'll skip through these really. There's one in relation to land use compatibility. So it's important to make sure that as and when development is brought forward, that we're addressing issues including traffic flows, vehicular access, egress, parking requirements, any outdoor amenity areas, storage requirements, lighting, noise, air quality, sunlight. It's not saying that we look at all those with a really detailed lens, but we'd need to make sure that there was sufficient safeguards in place to create a development that everybody could be proud of to Bonnfield. So, and in terms of policy 3.21, which applies to buffering, it says there that it's where appropriate buffering will be required between all uses, where there may be a conflict and where one use may detract from the enjoyment and function of adjoining uses. So there is the existing dwelling, would be 2 dwellings either side of the frontage of the commercial development on Mark Street. So consideration would need to be given to how that development relates to those adjoining lands which are existing. And we'll leave that to the applicant and their agent to get creative. In terms of policy 3.3D applies to infill development. So in this case, we would be infilling on an existing vacant lot of record. Private services policy considers the impacts on groundwater quality and the quantity and states the township shall consider the cumulative impacts of development on the sustainability of groundwater resources. So that would be addressed through the preparation of this hydrogeological report or hydrological report to understand how that lay of land works and what the potential water source is to serve the development. Policy 3.22.1 relates to community amenity. Again, it's about creating well-designed places. These policies on trees, landscaping, parking, you name it. But essentially, these are what we would be looking to address as and when more detailed proposal comes forward. Because it is a C2 commercial highway and service zone, according to our official plan, council will be able to implement a site plan control agreement in relation to that. So there would be a certain further conversation at the committee of adjustment and our council around what that looks like and in association with whatever development comes forward. In terms of zoning bylaw, this indicates it's, as I mentioned, both zoned for residential first density and also for the C2 zone. So the proposal as we've amended would recognize basically those existing zones. So there'll be no kind of material change there. Just recognizing the C2 zone as it is quite widespread in terms of the uses that are permitted. There's some that would certainly be seen as more appropriate than others, but we could have conversations around that again at a later date. In terms of public consultation, there were no comments received or objections received from the public. The Algonquins of Ontario didn't raise any concerns in principle, other than if there were any archaeological finds that obviously that'd be brought to the attention of those authorities. The North Bay Matter Conservation Authority provided quite detailed comments, as I've already kind of gone into. Hydro One didn't comment. Ministry of Transportation didn't, because it's not in their purview. It's not the Trans-Canada pipeline. The Bonfield Snowmobile Club didn't raise any issues or concerns, and there were no other concerns raised by township departments either. So really, the same recommendations apply to what we just said in regards to the minor variance. There's different conditions because it's a consent, but with that, I'll pass it back to the chair to facilitate.
Any questions or comments?
Very thorough.
Okay, bear with me. We will go again. We're in a second there. Moved by Dan, seconded by, sorry, I missed leave hands again, by Steve. That the Committee of Adjustments recommends to Council that proposed consent application reference B7 2026 be partially approved, subject to the following proposed amendments and conditions. 1, that proposed severed lot 1 be approved with the total area of the buildings and structures not to exceed maximum of 20% lot coverage permitted within the residential first density R1 zone. 2, that the proposed severed lot 2 be refused. 3, that the proposed retained lands incorporating proposed severed lot 2 be approved with the total area of the buildings and structures not to exceed the maximum of 20% of lot coverage permitted within the commercial highway and services C2 zone, and that the retained land shall have a combined lot size of 0.318 hectares. 4, that the existing and future on-site sewage system and well associated with the existing dwelling located at 208 Mark Street, which is the proposed severed lot 1, be contained wholly within the property's boundaries. 5, that the existing garage and shed on proposed severed lot 1 be demolished to accommodate any future proposed replacement on-site sewage system unless it can be demonstrated there is sufficient ultimate space on the lot to accommodate a replacement system that addresses all identified health and safety requirements. 6, that a pre-application consultation take place with the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority pertaining to any future on-site sewage systems, sufficient to accommodate this proposed use of the retained lands. That any, sorry, 7, that any existing or proposed well on the retained land be tested and registered with the MOE. And 8, the building permits for any proposed buildings and structures on all proposed lots be obtained from the chief building official representing the township of Bonfield. 9, entrance permits will be required for any proposed new entrances off Mark and James Street. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you for putting up with that very long reading. Congratulations.
Much, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
I will come back and see you with a detailed,
Yeah.
that's conceptual plans for what's proposed. I've suggested a couple of ways of doing it, which finally labeled the creative solution. We'll see what we can come up with for you. And,
Nothing wrong with being creative. Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it'll be nice to see something occupy the site. I
Absolutely.
want to try.
Looking forward. Yeah.
I know I cried when the tavern went
Yeah.
down, but.
Right, yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry again, we're late getting started.
Yes, very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Back to the top.
Move down.
So we will go to minor variance application reference A2 2026. Is it Attic Brooks?
Yes, I'm just gonna have to find my.
It's on I'll slow down. It's on 71 Lake Shore Road, Bonfield, Ontario. Oh, just trying to buy time for you here, son.
It just got a bit out of order.
Yeah.
See one here, so go with that. Right. Oh no, that's for the. There you go, where's my fresh package? I will use that, so it's some time of it.
Think it's 2 packages.
Yeah. Yes.
You never know.
I
got it all mixed up.
I like that.
Okay, yes, so as mentioned, this is application reference A2 2026 for 71 Lakeshore Road. So it's a minor variance application. Subject lands comprise an irregular shaped, gently sloping lot which declines from Lakeshore Road towards the municipal shore road allowance at Lake Nosbonsing. An unmaintained municipal road allowance also runs along the western boundary of the property. However, that section of unmaintained municipal road allowance is not really used for public purposes, so it's just there as a strip of land. The property is designated within the official plan for the township of Bonfield as rural, with an additional hazard land designation covering the property. The development constraint area designation also covers a portion of the property and the municipal shore road allowance. And part of those lands are also subject to this approximate regulated area. So this is the area that the Conservation Authority is typically concerned with because it's potentially subject to flooding. But we believe that is an historic kind of recognition of those lands. So the property is also identified in the comprehensive zoning bylaw of the township as falling within the residential limited services zone. And this applies because section of Lakeshore Road, which extends from 53 Lakeshore Road to this property, is and therefore is subject to a maximum of 10% lot coverage, and that's why this minor variance really has been brought forward, as well as to recognise some of the reduced setbacks. So the subject property did previously contain a dwelling and a cottage and some accessory structures. These have now been demolished or removed. And the area limit shown in the report kind of shows the general location of where those were. It's currently assessed by MPAC as being a vacant residential recreational land on the water. And there's a mix of year-round and seasonal residential and recreational uses in this location. So you can say that residential is an appropriate use. From a landscaping perspective, there's a mature side yard buffer. It's got a mix of coniferous hedges and trees. On the north, east and western side, it's relatively open in terms of how it fronts onto the lake itself, but the applicant would be encouraged to do some shoreline planting or something to over time to improve that. So their proposal essentially is to increase the maximum lot coverage from approximately 10% to 18.5% and reduce the interior side yard and front yard setbacks of 2 meters to allow for the construction of a new replacement dwelling. A separate application, which will be considered by council tonight, is to purchase the municipal Shaw Road allowance. So as it stands, where the dwelling would be situated, that would have a setback of 2 meters from where the municipal road allowance is, Shaw Road allowance is. That's omitting the covered deck. So if the covered deck were to be included, that would then go on to what are the municipal Shaw Road allowance lands, but that would still be set back at least 10 meters between the front building elevation and the ordinary water's edge. So the 10-meter setback would still apply from the water to the dwelling. So that would meet the zoning tests if council decided in principle to sell that piece of land. Otherwise, they would construct the dwelling without the covered deck, and this variance would apply.
And Cam has a question.
I do have a question, yeah, so I just want to envision, so, two things here, right? So there's 2 setbacks, I think that I heard. One is the side one to, if they purchase that allowance.
Yeah,
So right now it's 0.
that would be the front yard setback. If
So
they
the front
purchase
yard
it.
is the waterfront. right?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to envision, so the 0 setback, where's that from?
The 0 is in relation to the last application. This would be a 2-meter setback from the current municipal Shaw Road allowance if we choose not to sell that tonight.
Yes,
That they wouldn't do the covered deck, so they changed the design of the dwelling so that it didn't have that, and they'd still maintain a 2-meter setback from the Shaw Road allowance. If we choose to sell that piece of land, they'd be allowed to build the increased covered deck over it, but the outer point of where that comes would still be 10 meters from the water's edge. So they'd own the Shaw Road allowance,
okay,
but there'd still be a setback from the water's edge of 10 meters, so that would meet the test of the bylaw, if that makes sense.
yes. How are we supposed to make a decision if we don't know what council's gonna bring forward
Yeah, so
later on?
it's a great question. So what we did was calculate the 18.5% lot coverage on the basis that, say, council didn't approve that tonight, then this could still pass. And they would
Okay.
just design a dwelling that didn't have the overhang.
Sure, okay,
So this is really just to recognize that they could build the dwelling, but say without the covered deck.
right.
What would be a reason not for selling the shore?
Well, that'd be for council to decide tonight, I guess, but I mean, yeah, the neighbouring properties have been able to purchase them, there's an opportunity there for a
I've
sale.
never heard of a refusal, so that's why I'm listening.
Yeah,
Can I make a comment regarding that, even though that's not the topic right now? Yeah.
so,
I think-
yeah, I guess.
Is that appropriate?
It's just an informal conversation. Go for it.
But basically, I think that, one of the reasons why I think that maybe you shouldn't sell, the right of way or whatever, the easement is because, we have limited access, public access to, both Nospensing and Talon, and I think that if you sell it off, then, people that want to access it during the winter to just get their sleds on the ice or, even
Right.
walk out, then it makes it harder. I know that there's already a government launch, but there's people that walk out, and it'd be easier for them to walk out from a different point, right? That's just my 2 cents on that, but
That's a great question. I have an answer for you. It might satisfy you. So when you see this sketch here that's on page 2, if you project those lot lines out, so that would,
One of those plates.
yeah,
Mhm.
you can see off to what would be the west of the property, there's an existing road allowance, so not the Shaw Road allowance, but the road allowance.
oh, so this is not, okay, I was under the impression that that's what he's trying to.
No, it's to project forward from, yeah, because you haven't seen the package for this evening to know.
Shoreline.
Yeah, so if I just,
Right,
so you're clear.
yeah,
So we'd be projecting from that point straight out, and bring that point straight out, so this piece would not be solved. So even though that's not used at the moment by the public to access, because
Yeah.
there's kind of a driveway that meanders in and there's conifers, it's not exactly clear where that road allowance is. We would retain that position because it would allow in the future, if there ever were to be a public access point that it could be accommodated at that location.
Okay.
But otherwise, we won't be proposing, we won't be implementing anything, at least not in
Yeah.
our term.
Yes, I think I've never actually, I'm new to the idea that you can actually purchase the the waterfront portion of it. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it happened.
Must not be,
Is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
is there much left?
yeah.
There's still some.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some people just want it so that they can, yeah, but like,
What, so the municipality has two different options, you can license if you're just putting out something very small doing minor work to it, or you can purchase it if you need something major. So the problem with, if you sold all of it, then you're not protecting the lake. So then our official plan policies have policies where we're supposed to be protecting the lake, having a buffer of vegetation so that you can make sure there's a filter before things get to the lake. So it's a case by case on every situation. Because you really have to look at what's around and where that particular shore road allowance is.
I, in my short time, don't remember turning one down. Do you remember turning one down? Yeah, me neither, yeah. You've been around a lot longer than I have, but I'm like, I don't remember any of it.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
A long mitigation.
Sure,
stuff,
that leads to water.
I'd be upset, if my neighbor
We
could buy
can
it.
address that.
Yeah.
I'd be upset.
Yeah, that's
We are looking to
Straight
update our whole shore road allowance policy at
Yeah.
some point, so any issues, concerns will be addressed there.
Okay, thank you. Well done.
Continue.
Any questions or comments?
Oh, we're moving on, yeah.
Oh, well, if
Yeah.
people feel they need more or,
No,
okay,
that's good. A lot of the policies that are, I can cover in the next one anyway, this is the repeat, so yes.
I will look for a mover in a second. Moved by Mary, seconded by Dan.
Steve beat me to it, but.
Wow. That before I start reading, can I get a pronunciation of the last name?
No, this is not,
from
Oh,
No.
okay.
I believe it's
Rosa.
Jushka.
Yushka.
Jushka, yeah, there you go, Cam, you know.
This is for A2 2026.
Yes, that'd be back to.
Back to you. So the Committee of Adjustment recommends council that that proposed minor variance application reference A2 2026 Brad P. Brooks 71 Lakeshore Road, Bonfield, be approved with the following amendments and conditions. And that the increase in the maximum lot coverage from approximately 10% to 18.5% be permitted to allow the construction of a new dwelling plus accessory structures with a total built footprint on the property of approximately 2,011 square feet or 186.8 square meters. And two, that reduced interior side yards and a front yard setback of 2 meters be permitted in relation to the proposed dwelling, not including the proposed covered deck or the shore road allowance, which is subject to a separate SRA purchase application. 3, that a section 28 permit be obtained from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority pertaining to any proposed works within the development constraint area designation and or approximate regulated area for the ARA. 4, that an on-site sewage system permit be obtained from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority. And 5, that the existing well be tested and registered with the MOE. And 6, that the building permit for a building permit for the proposed dwelling and or other accessory structures be obtained from the chief building official representing the township of Bonfield. All in favor? That is clear. We will move on to minor variance application A4 2026.
Yes, I found my original notes, so.
Okay.
Okay,
That was you?
No,
No.
that was me, just.
Okay.
No,
You're
this
out of
is the.
You're out of here then?
No, it's-
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, thanks
Right
very
on.
much.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
This was the show.
No, he was the a
Neighbor,
neighbor.
Oh.
Neighbor at 69.
Okay. Now we're good to go, yeah?
Yes, please.
All right, so this, as Jason said, is a minor variance application reference A4 2026, which applies to 16 Cedar Lane. So the subject property is an existing lot of record, comprises an irregular shaped parcel, which declines from Cedar Lane in southbound direction towards Lake Nosbonsing. The property includes the former municipal shore road allowance, which was previously purchased in 2018. It contains an existing dwelling plus 2 small sheds and there's a legal description. The property has mixed land use designation according to the official plan. The majority of the property is designated rural and hazard land with an additional recreational area designation. So we might try to tidy some of this up in the official plan review because it's just doesn't make sense right now. But that designation is further laid by this regulated area by the Conservation Authority. So the property is also identified within the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Township of Bonfield as falling within the residential limited services. And as we noted in the last application, that limits the current permitted lot coverage to 10%. And that's why one of the reasons this application is brought forward. The property is currently assessed by MPAC as being a single family detached dwelling. From a landscaping perspective, again, it's got relatively mature side yard buffers in place with a mix of trees and bushes, create that sense of screening of the property from adjoining, so that helps when any development comes forward. The applicant's proposal here is a request for a minor variance to allow an increase in the maximum lot coverage from 10% to 15.5%. And this would allow for the construction of new decks, a garage, and associated to be associated with the existing dwelling. And in making the proposal, the applicant is also seeking relief from the existing zoning bylaw to recognise a reduced setback along its western interior side yard of 1.5 metres. And that is to recognise the existing legal non-compliant dwelling, which is located basically can't be moved. So 1.5 metres is that setback as it stands. And also a reduced eastern interior side yard setback of 2 metres, which actually accords with another policy buried elsewhere in the zoning bylaws. So that would, but again, we wanted to recognise that in this report so that it's tidied up, that these structures can exist as proposed. And so the planning policy context, there's provincial planning statement, as we mentioned previously. It's got a whole range of policies, but they don't typically apply to minor variances, more to major development proposals. So we won't go into detail on that. There's the official plan for the Township of Bonfield. A whole range of policies from water courses and lakeshore development to accessory uses, rural, lake nosbonsing. And generally, given the feedback we've received from the Conservation Authority, what we can say is that it meets the tests. They've said that they can issue a Section 28 permit to construct these decks, because technically they would fall within the area which is potentially subject to localized flooding in the event of extreme snowfall. And so, yeah, the development constraint area, this typically requires a setback of 45 meters, but just per the last application, these are historic lots of record. They're undersized. It is impossible to achieve a 45-meter setback when you have such reduced depth, right, to the lot. So, and the structure exists. So you're working with what you have at this stage. Property is zoned RLS, as mentioned. And the chart on page 5 kind of just summarizes what the variance is. So as mentioned, an increase of lot coverage from 10 to 15.5%, and a reduction in the interior side yard setback from 6 meters to 1.5 meters on the western boundary and 2 meters on the eastern boundary. And then also recognition of a proposed future garage to have a 2 meter setback, and that would be in relation to the eastern property boundary as well. Property is accessed via a private road. It's long been maintained by adjoining property owners off Cedar Lane, which connects to Sunnyside Road. So nothing would materially change there. The tests of the minor variance. So again, is it in keeping with the official plan? Yes. Is it in keeping with the purposes and intent of the zoning bylaw? Yes. Is it minor in nature? I believe we can say it is. Is it appropriate and desirable for the area? I would say yes, because there's currently a range of small, like those Canadian Tire tents and stuff like that. They'll all be cleaned up. You could build a new garage, you can store it. It helps contribute to property standards and would improve the desirability, if you like, of that property. In terms of comments, it was circulated around to the neighbours, to agencies, blah, blah, blah. No official comments were received. I'm speaking up.
You weren't even getting tired of your own report.
Nobody had any comments. And the North Bay Matter of Conservation Authority is willing and has, in fact, I believe, or will issue a Section 28 permit to allow for that construction of the deck within the regulated area. So they're happy and content with that. So to conclude, we're seeking a variation from 10 to 15.5% and also some reductions in setbacks. And we're just looking to clean up what already exists really in relation to the property. With that, I'll pass it back to the chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll look for mover and a seconder. Moved by Steve, seconded by Dan. That the Committee of Adjustments recommends to council that proposed minor variance application reference A4 2026 Jushka. There it is. 16 Cedar Lane, Bonfield, be approved with the following amendments and conditions. 1. That an increase in the maximum lot coverage from 10% to 15.5%, a reduced setback of the western interior side yard of 1.5 meters, and a reduced eastern interior side yard setback of 2 meters be permitted. 2. That prior approval be obtained by the North Bay Idaho Conservation Authority regarding the construction of all accessory structures proposed within the approximate regulated area, and 3, that the building permit for the proposed dwelling and or other accessory structure would be obtained from the chief building official representing the township of Bonfield. All in favor? That is carried. Gosh,
That was a short one.
Yeah. We do not have any staff report, so there is no correspondence on the agenda, and there is no other business listed on the agenda, so we're moving to the adjournment, right back on track for time.
Yeah.
I will look for a mover and a seconder for the adjournment. We've moved by Donna, seconded by Dan. That this meeting be adjourned at 6:51 PM. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Just getting awful close.
Yeah.